Hey guys, I want to share this really interesting study that states that ChatGPT tests in top 1% when it comes to creativity using the Torrance test of creative thinking. And this test is one of the most widely distributed tests worldwide when it comes to creativity. And I used to work at the Torrance Center where this test was created. And when I came across this study, it kind of drew my suspicions, but I want to be objective about it. This study really blew up in the news. A lot of people were fawning over the creative capacities of ChatGPT, but I wanted to take a good, hard, critical look at it to really see if its claims are really true. And I came across an article by Eric Holloway, and he's not someone who's against AI. He's an AI researcher, but I felt like he applied critical thinking to this study, and he confirmed my suspicions. So what I really like about his work is that he really looked further into the study without just reading what appears on the surface. And that's what I want to share here with you. So one claim of this study is that ChatGPT tests in the top 1% when it comes to originality, which is the ability to come up with ideas that are statistically rare. However, as you know, ChatGPT draws all of its ideas from its internet database. So it's no secret that ChatGPT could list a lot of ideas, but those ideas come from the internet. Even if it's not directly connected to the internet at that moment, it retains a lot of the knowledge of the internet. This is basically like an open book test. And this is not a fair study because they're comparing ChatGPT with human subjects who are not using the internet. The human beings are not having this open book test. The human subjects that ChatGPT they're being compared against, they're just doing this with paper and pencil. They're not connecting to an internet database. Would you say that reading ideas from the book or the internet something that is creative? Perhaps not. And as Holloway put it, the originality from the internet comes from the people who have created the internet content, not from ChatGPT itself. The next claim of the study is that ChatGPT tests in the top 1% when it comes to fluency, which is the ability to come up with coherent ideas that you, as a person who takes the test, understands the idea and can make it make sense to others. So the issue with the study is that the researchers are the ones who pick the ideas from ChatGPT to submit to the test. And that means that the researchers are determining which ideas are coherent and are worthy to submit to the test. So that is a big issue here because when you compare this with the human test subjects are taking this test and both their coherent and incoherent ideas are being submitted. So this is not a fair comparison. The other issue is machines do not have an inherent idea of coherency. They don't understand meaning. So I think an important attribute of creativity is that you're able to understand the meaning behind your own ideas. So Holloway says something interesting here is that ChatGPT just gets lucky and its responses quickly get repetitive. Even the people who created ChatGPT, they would say the same thing. At first, you get really excited seeing the results of ChatGPT, but then later on, very, very quickly, you see a lot of things are just very, very repetitive afterwards. So Holloway makes a great metaphor in which he says it's almost like coin flipping. You take a coin, you flip it 100 times, and no one on the history of this planet would have made that specific sequence of coin flipping. That doesn't mean that you are creative for flipping a coin. So let's take a question that may appear on Torrance test of creative thinking. How many different ways can you use a baseball bat? Well, ChatGPT could use the whole entire internet database to record responses that people have to this question. But a human being can either rely on their own memory or on their imagination, and probably largely on their imagination piece. They're not lugging around the whole entire internet with them. So that makes the capacity for human beings to imagine and to be creative to be very mysterious and to actually be rather impressive. So let's go to what Noam Chomsky has to say about ChatGPT. He says, we're not like ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a statistical machine that lugs around this huge memory that it could draw from. So that kind of makes our brains impressive because we don't have that huge memory, but we could use our imagination to be able to create stuff. So the person who did this study or led this study is Dr. Eric Guzik, and he has stated that he is careful not to interpret the data very much. But at the same time, he also stated that AI seems to be developing creative ability on par with or even exceeding human ability. And in light of everything I've told you about here, this is an unusually bold and uncareful conclusion for a researcher to make and present to the public. And I find issue with this because I've been part of psychology research before. And I think this encourages people, the public, to read the test results in a very uncritical way. And the same thing with the news stations, they just gobble this up. And I don't know why they don't invite researchers on board to look at the study from both sides and to do it critically. So in my opinion, ChatGPT is very far from being proven to have creative abilities, even according to results of this test. Now, I want to talk about the implications of this study. I believe that the study hurts creative professionals and creative people. And I've actually seen this study, this very study, and the news around it being distributed among the creative community and how it's been hurtful of them and also disempowering of them. It really was a shock for them to see this machine test in the top 1% when it comes to creativity. Businesses are going to eat this story up from the news and from this study, which is not very carefully done, and reduce hiring of creative people. And as a result, this is disempowering and discouraging of creative people. And creative people, especially kids who are creative, gifted in creativity, they may think twice about developing their creative skill if they believe that a machine is able to be in the top 1% when it comes to creativity. And often people who are creative, they are neurodivergent, which means that their brains are wired differently from others, and society keenly sees their weaknesses and downplay their strengths. Their brains are not wired to do what neurotypical people do, usually, but they have their own strengths in the creative realm. And this is another way to devalue them as creative people in a world where creative people are already devalued. So lastly, what I want to mention about is how this relates to how AI is being hyped up in general. So me personally, I'm not someone who is against AI. I believe it has a lot of potential that is good for humanity. However, I'm very concerned about the way that it's being rolled out right now in a rather reckless way. And part of what facilitates that is the reckless hype that is around it, that is in the news, that's encouraging these AI companies to create AI in such a reckless way and use it to displace people or disempower people. So that is what I am concerned about.